Ah, yes, love, love. Not a minute goes by without hearing someone evoking its tremendous, often superficial power. No radio station goes more than a song without a love song coming on. If you listen to the modern pop songs, all but a very small fraction deals with love, or lust, or some variant of the two. No modern movie is complete without a love triangle as its heartwarming, all-exclusive theme. I'll attempt to offer my position on love, and every other emotion for that matter, in this video. No doubt it will not be romantic in the conventional sense, but it will be honest and far more rational than the way the word is used by most these days. It's used as a charm against evil spirits, a prayer that can heal and cast away bad omens, a magical, mystical evocation accessible to all, a horse call offering love with no strings attached, that fabled, selfless love we all craved as divine grace, as a mother's touch. Emotion is the first evolutionary step from consciousness towards self-consciousness. It is a nexus, a connecting point between the body and the emerging conscious mind, setting up the mind-body dichotomy some use to fabricate all sorts of fantastic, comforting ideas. Emotion is the body and all the organs communicating with the nervous system. When the brain evolved as a central hub for the nervous system, emotion, it became this automatic response offering the advantage of efficiency. An automated, fast, visceral reaction making the fight-flight survival strategy effective. Later, having developed different reproductive methods, such as heterosexuality and then social cooperative unities, emotion evolved the numbing ability to deal with the pre-existing fight-flight mechanisms, as well as a variety of socially focused issues. It also took imprinting and raised it to the level of bonding. No thinking required. It was emotion's primal connection to both mind and body that made it effective in both areas and simultaneously, connecting the lower instincts and organic effects with the higher cognitive functions. It was a way to make it possible for a female to deal with the approach and penetration of an alien, often bigger, male, and then this tolerance became a way of tolerating others, which offered the survival advantage of pooling, where predators became confused by the swirl of large numbers of prey. In time, the survival tactic became so successful that larger gestation periods could evolve. But a limit on how long gestation could last, a limit placed upon the female by her need to flee and to feed and to remain physically flexible, reduced how large the hip-to-waist ratio could go, and made gestation out of the womb important from an evolutionary standpoint. It became important to develop larger brains. This out of the uterus maturation period requirement we call weaning meant that infants could remain dependent on the mother for longer and longer periods of time, depending on the size of the brains. This, in turn, made tolerance, attachment, and the required risks and costs essential for brain sizes to increase, crucial for the next step in evolution. This also explains why females are so dependent and so focused on relationships and internal social harmony. Lust begins as this hormonally induced madness we call rut or heat when referring to the feminine version. The mind goes mad with the chemical effect. The male goes through a period of acting in ways it would not normally act. The genes impose their will and the brain need not be aware. It simply reacts to the inebriation, the testosterone-driven craze. For the female, the hormones are meant to numb her anxieties, to make the need more powerful than the fear. Just as her body's autoimmune system must be tricked to accept the sperm long enough for fertilization to occur, her brain must be placed in a state of total acceptance, total submission, to make the approach and the penetration possible. We all speak of the blindness and madness of love, because when we speak of love, we mean lust, its underlying primal force. But there is also another kind of love, the more rational and calm, the parental or friendship-producing kind, we call agape, to differentiate it from the erotic. With agape, the brain need not be totally inebriated. It relies on focusing upon the other's sameness, the elements in the other which remind the mind of itself. For a nihilist, love is God. It is a representation of the end, the all-encompassing singular absolute. Or in its secular variant, love is the highest ideal, the most profound idea. Egoless, selfless, this is the idealized human. An ant-like, bee-like automation, different only superficially from one another, but not actually. This is why for the nihilist, appearances are always false. They're always shallow. The unifying self, the common self, is deeper, according to them. Inside, underneath, invisible, beyond, outside the skull, something one can only feel. Feeling is more real than sensing. The emotion more tangible than the sensation, the sensually perceived. My position is that anxiety is the primary emotion, fear being the extreme sensation of anxiety. My position is based on this fact. Consciousness precedes self-consciousness. The senses evolve to sense otherness, to discriminate otherness. But they are facing outwards towards the other, and only later evolve the ability through reflection to perceive self as that which is other than the other, a form of negating the other. I am that which I am not. This is why primitive minds cannot recognize themselves in reflection. For them, the senses always discover otherness, the alien, and the self is what perceives and need not be perceived. As consciousness evolves and becomes more sophisticated, the mind develops the ability to perceive self as an otherness through the other. It recognizes self in the reflection, in the other's reaction. This requires self-knowledge. For this reason, the mind first engages reality as an otherness, an unknown alien otherness. Its first emotional reaction, when it develops this automatic response mechanism, is anxiety and fear, preparing it to fight or to flee, and later to discern, to discriminate between the harmless and the harmful, the potentially benign and the potentially dangerous, the edible and the inedible, the friend from the foe. It does this through habituation, experience, reaffirmation, through consistent contact, resulting in a recognition of a pattern, patterns of similarity and divergence. This is only possible after a divergence, a separation, has already occurred. It is only when the organism has become self-organizing and self-contained within a membrane, a skin, a bone structure with a nervous system that it can then evaluate sameness and divergence in otherness. The organism begins to separate, distinguish itself, differentiate from otherness. It then re-engages otherness as a separating, self-organizing unity. The otherness is what threatens this self-organizing unity. To protect itself, it recognizes, by perceiving patterns of similarity and divergence, interpreting each as an abstraction. Man, human beings, later place these patterns into categories of type, of behavior, of activity, of nature. By understanding the pattern, man makes of the alien other a lower, a less source of anxiety and fear. The otherness becomes predictable, comprehensible. Fear, being this first extreme reaction to otherness, must be dealt with if heterosexual cooperative strategies are to be made possible. Lust is the chemical method by which this primal first reaction is placated and redirected. Love is the later sophistication of this lust, so as to enable tolerance and association of otherness with self, making a social interaction possible and cooperatives possible. The weaker mind relates to the stronger mind with the element of eroticism. It submits to something it considers threatening and dangerous to it, because the superior mind is mysterious, mystical, incomprehensible. It gives itself to it because it hopes it can find there something superior than itself to belong to identify with. Amongst equals, agape is the bonding mechanism. Here the relationship is one based on a rational, empirical evaluation of the otherness as a sameness with self. This requires a high level of self-awareness, but also a high level of discrimination, as in discriminating tastes, discriminating perceptions. The more sophisticated mind must not only know itself deeply, but also be able to discern, to discriminate between the multiplicity of otherness in order to recognize another which is more similar to itself. It rejects what is different or what it does not wish to identify with. It accepts and attaches itself to what is the most like it and what it hopes to become, its own conception of its own ideal self. This higher form of love is what results in mimetic congruence. Love is a term referring to a communal bond the individual worships and mystifies so as to purify it of its selfish and egotistical motives, in this way making it stronger. It is a way of ensuring that the other will be positively inclined towards the individual, increasing survivability. To deify this self-serving emotion is to place it on a pedestal, trying to ensure that nothing real, nothing worldly will blemish its idealized perfection. Women and children are attracted to the idea of universal, indiscriminate love because in its imagined state they are always included and always protected. By deifying love, making it into something holy, stripping it of its real-world components, detaching it from reality and idealizing it, individuals set themselves up for failure, for disillusionment and despair. Sometimes they blame themselves for failing to live up to such an unambiguous, idealized perfection. But most of the time they blame others, they blame the world for not living up to a standard they cannot fully comprehend themselves, nor define, but they can only feel it. But by feeling it and not having it returned, they become victims of their own mental deficiencies and naive projections. And as victims, they find comfort in the idea. The constant repetition of the term love has made it irrelevant. Those who use it casually are the ones who do not understand it the most. They are the ones who have mystified it, reducing it to nothing more than an empty word. You can rest assured that those people who use terms like friend or love or trust repeatedly are the ones least able to display these concepts with any depth. Their love, their trust, their friendship is the most shallow and the most easily forgotten. No emotion, whether it be love, hate, pride, envy, anger, is either good or bad, either destructive nor constructive. All emotions, when they become extreme, when they surrender to the irrational, when they free themselves from reason, are destructive and dangerous. An emotion is supposed to inspire and motivate. It is a way to make a reaction more effective by making it automatic. Left uncontrolled by reason, emotion can only result in negative repercussions. An emotion can lead to the creation of beauty, of the sublime, only when it is harnessed to the will with reason. Only when it is directed consciously can it become constructive and create what is enduring and what stands the test of time. In other words, what is of quality. The concept of love has also been hijacked by the nihilists, the modern secular humanist nihilists. The word is now part of their arsenal of negation. If you do not ascribe to their spiritual, mystical conception of love, their all-inclusive Horus love, then you immediately become part of the haters. It's the case with spirituality in general. For Christians, a variant of the same nihilistic family, for Christians, spirituality must go through Jesus. Otherwise, it is blasphemy, it is satanic. To worship nature is demonic. To worship another deity is a sin. The only worship which is good, which is loving, which offers salvation, that is, an escape from the world, is the worship of the singularity, the monotheistic tyranny of their King of Kings, their leader of victimhood. For the modern nihilist, all must provide an escape out of reality. Therefore, love must become this self-negating immersion in otherness, in the unity of the presumed absolute. Anything to escape the responsibility, the experience of selfness as need suffering, anything to avoid integrity, self-responsibility. Value for them is measured by how much relief from reality a concept offers.